Hey Zoom family, it's Sunday, and that means we're back talking to my favorite segment of the week, catching up with Ron Nicoli over in Las Vegas. Ron, how have you been? What's happening?
Good, good. Things are good. Starting, obviously, we don't know what normal is, but I guess it's starting to get back to progression to that. Some things have started to open up, and starting to see a little bit more activity. Even on my tour, the Strip tonight or today, a lot different than even last week. Where last week I think if we're moving around, you're only seeing a couple people, and now you're really starting to see a lot of people on the Strip. As far as not necessarily cars, but like people. So.
Now, it's really interesting you say that. I mean, you mentioned to me beforehand, people are copying us. They're out there on the Strip. They're trying to create content. So, I mean, your creative conversations will become a talking point. And today, you start off in a totally different section to us. You're going towards the city center, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So right now it's a little difficult to find places to kind of like park on the Strip, right? So a lot of things are shut down. So we found like a good spot to park, and it actually originally I wasn't going to go by City Center and Aria, but we were able to essentially park right next to it. So as we were kind of making our way to some of the locations we wanted to hit, we did little pass over and stop by the Aria and the City Center project.
Well, today's quite a special one because we're not just continuing the tour of Vegas, but you're coming in to describe to us and talk us through one of your first ever way back marketing campaigns, which is with a huge superstar, Deadmau5. And that's something I'm really, really excited about. So today will be action packed, but let's get started. Let's go straight into the first section. So do you want to introduce us to the first segment of your tour?
Yeah, we start off over at City Center, which City Center is actually a collection of different properties. It's the Aria Casino. It's Veer, which is a mix of like hotels and condos. It's the Waldorf Astoria, which was formerly the Mandarin Oriental, and it's Crystals, which is again just a very high-end shopping mall, which has the Tom Fords and the Dolce Gabbanas, etc. And really just getting a good look of it from the outside. I mean, it really is its own somewhat of a city, and it was a fitting name when the project opened. And I remember leading into it. I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar project, and I remember just how huge it was, and it looked even bigger then because again, it encompasses such a large block of the Las Vegas Boulevard that when they were going through and doing the construction and being out here as long as I've been, I saw it go from that phase of all of that essentially being demoed and it being flat land, and then you're slowly seeing that structure build up over a number of years. And when you look at it now, it really did start transforming I would say the kind of skyscraper of Las Vegas. You had casinos that looked like pyramids and castles, and you're walking through a lion's mouth many years ago, and now all of a sudden City Center comes into play, and it reminds you of like a New York. It reminds you of a very big city, globally I guess you would say a big city, because even I remember when I landed in Malaysia and Kuala Lumpur and seeing some of the skyscrapers and buildings you had there. So again, it has that city element to it, so the name was very fitting. But really started the journey off there today, and again, like I said, we're starting to see more people on the Strip, and one of the activities is becoming very popular. And I had to ask the question because I started seeing all these bikes on the Strip, and riding your bikes on the Strip has become like a huge thing right now that people are doing. And I think it's like one of those like kind of bucket list things, because I don't think, hopefully, look, we're hoping that never again there'll be a situation like this where the Strip would be shut down like this, right? And so all of a sudden I started seeing commonality of bikes, and I was asking a friend of mine, and she's like, yeah, they're renting them. So there's like, I guess, places downtown where people are literally parking their cars and they're renting bikes there downtown, and they're taking all the way from downtown and they're going all the way up Las Vegas Boulevard and going all the way to Las Vegas sign. So it's become a little bit like of a, I guess you would say, almost like a local, like touristy thing to do right now.
That's really exciting. I mean, I have some questions to burn, but let's go straight into segment one. And afterwards, I'm going to give you some feedback and ask you some questions about the experience.
What's going on out there, guys? On this week's edition of Creative Conversation, the Las Vegas tours are going to continue. Behind me is City Center, one of the last major casino resort complexes to open up in Las Vegas. 2010 was the year, and upon opening, it was an epicenter of nightlife here, with lounges, restaurants, nightclubs, day clubs. And again, the footprint there has changed significantly over the years. The Light Group was operating the venues there, and since Hakkasan has taken over a few of the spaces, and including revitalizing the old Hayes space into Jewel nightclub, which opened about 4 years ago. This is a place where you would see artists like, back in the day, like Chainsmokers and Steve Aoki and Zedd, to name just a few. But again, this is a great venue. It's probably one of the more mid-sized venues that exist in Las Vegas, probably in about that, I would say about 1,500 to 2,000 capacity. But again, great vibe, a lot of production and technology in the space, really tucked away in the actual resort element here. Very easy to get in and out of, really great space. This is the first stop we're kind of making and taking right here. Again, billions upon billions of dollars were put into this space here. And again, it happened right at the kind of end of the last recession and was really part of the revitalization in that second run of economy that happened for the Las Vegas market. So City Center, really amazing place. If you ever get out to Las Vegas, definitely check out Crystals. The shopping is unreal. Some of the top designers in the world call Crystals home, between, Gucci and Lanvin and the first Tom Ford store. One of the first Tom Ford stores outside of New York actually happened here in Las Vegas, and they've expanded that with the women's brand and optical and stuff. So again, really a sight to see. The Crystals shopping center is just a really, really beautiful and really amazing place. So when you look at the complex that's made up of actually City Center, you have the Aria Casino Resort. You have the Waldorf Astoria, which originally was the Mandarin Oriental. You have Veer, which is a kind of a luxury condo type of converted setting that you have going on there. And obviously you have Crystals, the shopping center, which we already talked about. I mean, the complex as a whole is just enormous and huge. And again, it was a multi-billion-dollar investment that MGM came together with I believe in partnership with Dubai World to make this happen. Again, it was right at the cup of the recession period, so it was the perfect timing for an open. And honestly, they've had an amazing and great run. It'll be an exciting property to see reopen post-COVID.
Well, that's a really big insight, Ron, because I can totally see what you mean about these modern structures and this modern side. And I came to Vegas last year for a very short period of time when we met, and I got a tour of the Strip. And something that I'm not ashamed to say that my favorite part was, I believe it's called Excalibur. Is it the old one that looks like a castle? And I like the whole theater of the whole thing, and the staff are dressed as if they're in for the olden times. And now you have these beautiful structures and even Art Deco, and you've got these like huge exhibitions with lights and stuff. Which part of Vegas do you resonate with most, bearing in mind you're a long-term resident there?
Well, I think it's kind of like it's an interesting question. It's almost a difficult question as well. I remember, coming to Las Vegas, a lot of people remember the first nightclub I ever went to in Las Vegas was Studio 54. And to me, obviously I was growing up and I used to watch the Studio 54, the movie with Ryan Phillippe in it. And I remember you're watching that and there's emulation in your head of what it's going to be like. And you go to Studio 54 in Vegas, which was again, the trademarked replication of the New York venue. And I remember it was funny because going to that club, I remember I ended up at Excalibur one night. And keep in mind, from a small town in Ohio and going to this theme hotel, I thought it was the most awesomest thing in the world. You know what I mean? You're in a castle. And I guess at 25, 26 years old, that probably was where my headspace was. Now it's crazy because it's like you're seeing some of these resorts, including, obviously Resort World Vegas, it's going up with all the luxuries and all the kind of mixtures of almost like contemporary and luxury kind of blended. And it's like, I guess that, 40 some years old, I think that's probably where my headspace is now, that I'm kind of tearing more towards the modern elements, but there is something nostalgic about some of the old theme places. And, the other thing is downtown, which I should probably spend some time and show people downtown. Downtown's really amazing because downtown has kind of really latched on to like a kind of an art and culinary culture. And then you mix in some of the very iconic casinos. A lot of people don't realize the real Las Vegas actually started down there. Like the downtown strip was the original strip. And then as new business came and they kind of migrated, but it's sometimes very, very nostalgic to kind of go down there. It's a fun time.
It's interesting you say that. I mean, I live in a resort up here and we have different sections as you described. We have modern sections, we have more old school sections. But we have this street that I've taken you to called Malaysian Food Street, which is many of the best hawker center style food that you can get in Southeast Asia. And you're working on a food street concept for Vegas as well, right? You just mentioned that downtown is bubbling with all these kind of food activities. And that's an element that's coming to Resorts World Las Vegas also.
Yeah. There's again, we can't give too much information, but yeah, there's going to be some. I think there's a lot of interesting food concepts that are coming to Resort World. And again, it's crazy because I look at it. When I first moved to Vegas, one of the most exciting things for me was the fact that, I had come from Ohio, but used to go to New York a lot. And fashion was always really interesting to me. But you go to New York, and to see some of the top fashion brands, you were going many, many blocks to blocks. And it's amazing the kind of concept that's coming together, because you have all this amazing food globally that's now being centralized into this space, or this internal street, which again to me is kind of, it's the way I always thought of kind of how the shopping in Vegas was, or kind of still is. The way that these guys have kind of curated this food experience, I think is going to be very next level, because again, you're taking all these amazing things that a lot of times there's people domestically that don't get to travel like that, and to come here and to be able to experience this is going to be really amazing.
So moving on to your next segment, you then move on further into Las Vegas and to a spot that I've stayed in, which was a pretty fascinating insight, the Cosmopolitan Hotel. And looking at that, you're talking about pretty much a space that's very similar to our Sky Avenue here in Resorts Beginning, where you have a lot of amazing boutiques, a lot of amazing food offerings. You also got a few club offerings. I know Marquee is based there. You've got like a barber shop, speakeasy, some very cool stuff. But it's an amazing core, because you've got this collection of F&B, entertainment, retail, eateries, but directly below the towers of the hotel. And it's pretty much a center point of that strip, no?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, we always use the sports term. It kind of sits on the 50-yard line of the strip. It's like right in the epicenter of Las Vegas Strip is the Cosmopolitan. And again, it's a pretty incredible property when you think about how contemporary it is, but again, was able to have some very high-end aesthetic to it, and truthfully, I don't get to talk about this much, but probably one of the greatest marketing campaigns I've ever seen is the rollout for the Cosmopolitan. I mean, I remember, they're going on almost about 11 years old now. And I remember sitting there and seeing some of their advertisements. First I remember watching television and seeing the U.S. Open and Cosmopolitans all over the U.S. Open. And then I remember Mad Men was a really popular show at that time. And it was during, I believe it was either the season premiere or the season finale, and peppered in there was a national commercial for the Cosmopolitan. And I'm thinking, this is nuts, because again, there's casinos that had done national ads, and some of their ads more regionalized, but these guys went out and basically did a truly national campaign to introduce this casino resort brand. And in doing so, they also peppered in these taglines. It was like the right amount of wrong or something. And the videos that they put together at that time were just really amazing. And keep in mind, we're talking at a time when the repurpose of content was very limited, right? Like, people are going out and they had this commercial, and they might have had like a YouTube page going on there, but it probably wasn't, where we were engaging with it as much. But you didn't have Instagram. You didn't have, you weren't utilizing that video probably as much for Facebook, and you definitely weren't using it from an ad composition from a digital side. And they still made that investment. It was pretty impactful.
That's pretty cool. I mean, let's move into this segment. I want to see a little bit more about what you're talking about, and we can learn more about the Cosmo as a centerpiece.
How's it going, guys? Our next stop is the Cosmopolitan Las Vegas. Probably one of the greatest casino openings, I think, in history, or at least any in my history. Coldplay and Jay-Z christened and opened the property on New Year's Eve 2009 going into 2010. The property itself, amazing. The proper mix of luxury and contemporary in a space. It's morphed and changed throughout the years. Great small kind of shopping retail area. And for those of you overseas, this is where Marquee really made a name for itself. Obviously, Jason and Noah did a great job with Marquee New York, but it really just elevated the Marquee brand when they opened up in Las Vegas. At that period in time, we're probably the top club in Las Vegas, and questionably the world, for probably about a 3-year run. They were really, really impactful in the EDM movement in Las Vegas, and were probably one of the first venues that really started doing residencies in Las Vegas for the EDM and DJ artists. Again, that's what almost created that kind of cultural shift where you went from having EDM and kind of DJs headline just the major weekends to every week when they opened, they had a big name artist that was playing inside marquee. So Jason and Noah did an amazing job of kind of elevating and evolving what the Las Vegas nightlife kind of scene was at that space and that time. And again, it's just continued to expand since then. But again, Marquee, definitely a venue worth checking out. Obviously has a couple different rooms to it. They have the day club, which is also amazing. And truthfully, it's almost the right size for a day club. Very sexy people, very great music, and they've done a really great job of continuing that success for 10 years.
Thanks for that, Ron. It brings back some memories for me of last year, and then hopefully not the last time I get to see a space like that. And then I think everyone remember that last week I semi-begged you for a shot of the movie famous fountain that I've seen so many times at the Bellagio, and you did me a favor, but sadly we missed the boat this time with the Bellagio Waterfall, no?
Correct. For some reason, today it was not on. I actually, it's funny, I think I told you, I drove by it yesterday, and there was a show going on, which is a very common thing for there to be shows going on. Today I went over there and no show, and it's actually funny. One of the scenes I shot, it's a very peaceful body of water when nothing's going on. Like you could be out at the right angle. You may think you're just at some pond, and not realize the backdrop. But very, very quiet there today. I think I reference it, but a lot of people out getting content right now. We're seeing a lot of content creators and collectors on the Las Vegas Strip right now. A lot of cameras. It's actually when we were out filming there today, we're basically essentially jockeying for position to get the framing, because we've got on either side of us, you've got a photographer with a girl, you've got two guys getting shots, you got one guy who's literally like sitting on the railing over the water to get a photo. So it was pretty interesting. It was like almost like a little studio setup going on there today. This is the site. This is the scene. The end of Ocean's 11. The group gets together for that kind of final rendezvous before they go their separate ways. Bellagio Fountain, super, super iconic place. Ocean's 11, super iconic movie. When you think Las Vegas, it was the perfect ending to what was the perfect heist. And again, many, many photos are taken here each day. Many videos are taken here each day. Even right now, where the entire strip is completely empty, as we're filming, as we're coming out here to continue the tours and gather content, if you look around us, there's people doing photos all around us. There's photo shoots going on. There's influencers out here. Probably some TikTok videos going on. But again, the iconic spot right here. Final scene of Ocean 11. Probably was a lot harder to film that than it is today. Right now, as we've roamed up and down the strip, very few people still. But probably on that day, they probably had to block off the entire thing. You had 11 or 12 of the biggest stars in the world that were on set for that. But again, just closing this week's out, creative conversation. Let me know what you're thinking, guys. Let me know if there's a place you want to see. Let me know if there's information you want me to dive deeper in. I know that me and Joe are talking about showing you some of the past campaigns that I've worked on. And also we want to engage. Like if there's a particular question you have about something that we're doing, throw it at us. Let us come back to you. Let's make it a conversation. Let's tour a place. Let's tell you something that might interest you, and let's get your feedback. Again, this is Ron Nicoli, Creative Conversations. Thank you.
It was very cool, but we'll try again with the waterfall. I mean, I want to do it in person, so no pressure if it doesn't. But I want to move on. I want to continue the tour next week. I want to keep going with this. There's a million amazing features that you can show us in Vegas for sure. And thanks so much for that. But I want to move on to your area of speciality. I want to look at marketing. We discussed this, and I know you've put some time into researching some of the amazing campaigns. I mean, there's people. I've been lucky enough to look after some big names, but not to the same level as Vegas does everything. I mean, you do it big. And one of your first marketing campaigns that you're going to talk us through, you say, is a throwback to who was arguably one of the biggest breakthrough EDM names to make it big, was Deadmau5.
Yeah, I mean, at the time that we shot the campaign, he questionably might have been one of the number one artists in the world. I mean, the album had just dropped. It was on fire. He had just recently done an anniversary party with us, which I think was our second year anniversary party for Access. And we had finalized the agreement for the next year for a residency. And at the time, you know, and obviously prices have drastically inflated, or, you know, competition caused that. But, you know, it was probably the biggest residency from a dollar perspective at that point. And being honest with you, and it's probably a little bit more honest than I normally would like to be, but it was really the first campaign I got to work on. And I remember sitting in the room when we wrote the treatment, and I remember we had a long time to put it together and pull it together, but there was a lot of missing links. And I remember we actually had to go show Joel. Joel wanted to see it, and keep in mind, he at this point is a really big star in that world, and he's pretty intimidating when you get to meet him for the first time, when you get to talk to him. He's a super intelligent guy, like really intelligent and technically intelligent. So like, you know, when he's an artist, but he's super intelligent on a tech side as well. So when you're trying to walk him through this treatment, you're getting hit from two sides. You're getting hit from the creative vision side, and he's also asking very technical questions on how you're going to shoot it. And I remember it's one of the few times, because you're early on in your career, probably one of the first big artists that I actually got to do something like this with. And again, I got to be honest, a little bit nervous, a little bit scared, a little bit intimidated. And I remember like just kind of having to like kind of pull it together. And then he was such a sport because it literally was 2 full days of shooting. So it was 2 8-hour days. And the premise for the video was we wanted to highlight the property. And the way we integrated it was the kind of summary of the story was that deadmau5 was looking for a job at Wynn. So he was looking for a job, and we were trying to help find what's the job for deadmau5. And we take him out, and he tries being a lifeguard, and you know, like not saving anyone, didn't care, you know. Then he's going to be a sushi chef, and he's over here playing around with the sushi, complete fail. Then we take him out to the golf course, and he's going to be a caddy, and you know, he ends up driving off in the golf cart. And we continue through a series of these, even putting him in the Lorev Theater. Like, he's a showman. Let's make him part of the show. And at the end, obviously, all of those were a fail. And all of a sudden, you see Joel with the mouse helmet on, slide down the banister into excess. The music picks up, and Joel starts DJing. And again, we found the perfect position for him. And it was a really fun shoot. And again, it was 2 full days. He was amazing to work with. And again, during the process, you're seeing someone as an artist who once you get him into form, now the creative input's coming into play. And now you're able to have that conversation. And now, you know, we're going through the steps of understanding what this is going to look like. You know, we're all having these conversations of, well, why don't we try it from this side? And it was refreshing, because sometimes you'll get on set, and you know, keep in mind, since then I've probably done 200-300 of these, and you can tell going in to the shoot what the output is going to be. Not immediately, but within like that first hour, if the artist is very disconnected and doesn't want to be there, it always shows. And I normally will start with that and kind of say, hey, like, we've all got to be in the right sense of mind here. And because the thing is, we all feed off each other. You know, I've been on sets where we know, you know, about an hour in, you're like an hour into an 8-hour day, you know, the finished product is going to be trash because the guy went out drinking. I mean, I've been on sets with the artist shows up and they reek like alcohol, like they haven't gone to bed. And then you're just looking at yourself and you're saying, but sometimes in that case, they actually want to be there. It's just the activities of last night are preventing them from giving it their all. But Joel was really amazing to work with. And it was funny, last year, pretty much almost 10 years later, I got to do another campaign shoot with them, and again was super amazing. And it's actually crazy. I remember we hadn't talked in a number of years, and again, both of our careers had evolved in that period of time, and never had a very lengthy conversation like this. And I ended up sitting with him at a 24-hour cafe the night before the shoot, and literally was there with him until about 4 a.m. And we were together for about 5 hours and just talking. And obviously there was a commonality of people that we had now known from being in this industry, in this world, and even talking and referencing that shoot, you know. And again, like, I don't think even till this day that I ever really referenced to him that was probably the first major artist I did a shoot with. So it's really meaningful to me, because I think one of the takeaways from it was, though, there was like a moment going into that morning, because I didn't sleep the night before because I was like really nervous, that I realized that if I didn't have the confidence in doing it, then no one around me was going to believe I could do it. So I really went into it with just an attitude of, I know I can do this. Look, we've got the plan, we've got everything together. And you know what? After meeting with Joel seemed to believe that I could do it. So there was no reason to sell anyone on it anymore. But really amazing shoot and campaign that came out of that one.
So the major takeaways are, number one, to treat the artist as a human being. Secondly, believe in yourself with following through, because at that point they're looking to you for direction. And lastly, that come prepared, and you only get your best material if you prepare in the best possible way. So I just want to ask you, when you look at this, you see it done 200 or 300 times. What is the different components that go into a campaign? Obviously, I'm not talking for you to deep dive too much, but your basic structure in developing a campaign would it be what? So
I really have a complete dimensional approach to this, you know. So first off, it's obviously, you know, the concepting is its own separate thing. You've got your concept together, and how do you bring it to life, right? And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll sketch diagrams of the set, because I'm trying to understand what the set's going to look like, what the lighting is going to look like, what that effect is going to pull in. So you've got your concepting, so you have your creative concepting together. You have your production set. How am I going to take what's in my head and translate it into reality, right? And then you formalize it. Like, you formalize it into like pretty much a shot list. Now, the other thing is, I said there's no idle hands on set. So like what I'll normally do is, how do we get the most content out of that period of time? Because if you're asking the artist to come in for 8 to 10 hours, over that 10 hours, how do I ensure that I got someone going around with a mobile phone? I have a behind the scenes camera going on. I've got a person doing lifestyle stills. I have the principal photographer and videographer shooting the main content, but I'm finding every asset there. And then the other thing you do, it's like a spider web. I always say to myself, what's all the assets being used for, right? Because that's also part of it. Because if you can connect the dots, there's more value to it, right? It's like, if I have someone walking around with a mobile phone, but they don't understand the purpose of the content, they're a little less involved in it. But if they understand, all right, we've got this content and these are going to be, you know, week of show, we're going to start plugging in some of the behind the scenes and lifestyle, or, you know, we're going to put those into a photo collage we're going to use for this. They're more involved, because sometimes, especially early on, you get sometimes some people that are fresh to being on a set, or fresh to doing this type of content. If they understand the use and the end result, there's a sense of pride that takes over. You know, you get that 22-year-old kid fresh into Vegas, fresh into marketing, and now all of a sudden he's walking around with his phone. And keep in mind, he's already on set with a huge artist, but he's walking around with his phone. But he's excited to know at some point he's going to be able to tell one of his friends, yeah, that's the photo I took on set that day, you know? And that's a big moment, because I remember being that kid who, like, the first time I did something big like that, I'm like calling home, and obviously my parents had no clue what I was talking about, but there was a feeling of pride in being able to have that conversation. So, but I think those are the basic things, and it's stay idle. And, you know, I always tell the crew, it's going to sound crazy, and maybe I'm giving up too much of the secret sauce here, but we always have a script. So we have a script that we do on set, because there's certain touch points of someone coming in, you want them to be comfortable. Even down to the introductions. Like, the introductions are very important, because you're setting the tone, right? Introductions, then from introductions, it's craft services, then it's introducing to the stylist, then it's walking them through, it's having mood boards, pose boards, but you're giving them enough positive information that, because sometimes the things people don't realize is a lot of these DJs are good looking, a lot of these artists are good looking, but they're not models. So a lot of direction and coaching that goes on set. Sometimes it's easier when they have a visual. But again, like at this point, it's pretty clockwork. You know, and I've had the pleasure of working with some of the same guys. So in doing so, their ability to break down a set or to set up, and you always pivot. keep in mind, no one knows something's wrong on set unless you react to it. We had the one time where I think we did a whole video segment and the video wasn't recording. You know what I mean? Like, you go through that and you find ways of working in to do it again without exactly saying that there was a fuck up or lights break or different things happen. But again, you always maintain confidence and you never really want the subject, in a sense, to see that something's gone wrong.
Yeah, dude, I think it's important you hit an important thing, that mistakes happen all the time. Things go wrong right, left, and center, and nothing great has ever come too easily. But that's an amazing insight, and we look forward to having a sneak peek at the campaign that you did with Dead Mouse. And then hopefully in the coming weeks, we'd love to explore more and more, because you're giving us an insight into a world that's pretty alien to a lot of us. Because, like you say, we've all been that 20-something guy. If we've been like in any walk of life, it doesn't necessarily have to be with a celebrity DJ. It's the first time you get an autograph from a famous person that you admired, or it's the first time that you get your first job, or you get your degree, or there's always touch points, as you put it, that are special to us, that are great memories. And dude, I'm still a 37-year-old guy who's getting those touch points when Ferry Corsten comes to Genting, I get to take him for lunch. It's still like a fan doing the job that I love. So I think it's exciting what you describe, and we'd love to get more and more insight into that. But Ron, once again, it's late for you. I'm going to have to get up early one day go to bed late one day so that you can get up early one day. But we would love you to continue next Sunday and show us more of Vegas. We'd love to talk more about your marketing campaigns, because that's something that is a luxury for us to get an insight into a mind like yours. But last week we watched Sylvan and your Tuesday night sets and interviews. That was really exciting. I enjoyed that a lot. Who have you got coming up in the coming weeks? Who are we going to meet, and who are we going to listen to?
So we got, I think this week we got Andrea de Monte is going to be this week. Really, really interesting story. Obviously influencing and grew up with music because of his father and his family. Really passionate about it. And one of the more key interesting things is, he's a professional model, but music is his life. It's like, it's even when talking to him, the modeling essentially is the financial side of it that I think enables him to really go after his passion. And he's now producing music. He had a hit in Italy already, and he's got more music coming out. He's been taking this time to produce more, and it's actually funny. The first time I was introduced to him, as we were planning this curation, I actually ended up being at a shopping mall, and my friend who was with me goes, "There he is," and I go, "There's who?" And he goes, "Andrea." And I go, "Where?" And he's pointing at the guest window, because he's literally plastered in the window of guests. And again, like, I didn't really put it together, but yeah, he's like been the face of guests for the last few years. So really, really great guy, really interesting, super passionate about music, super passionate and happy just about life. And honestly, it was a pleasure to get to know him. So I'm excited. I'm excited for his set to air.
Hey, thanks so much, Ron, and thanks again. It's the highlight of my week doing these conversations. We're going to continue
Me too.
Time. At one stage, it would be fantastic to pull in some of your upcoming colleagues as well. There's a lot of experience out there in Vegas, so we look forward to meeting more of your team. But keep us posted, Ron. We can't wait till Tuesday, and then we'll touch base next week as well.
Sounds great. Take care, Joe.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care, bro.